I thought I might find you tucked away in this corner, Tom, hidden behind the largest menu they have.
You always did have a knock for tracking me down when I'm trying to disappear into the upholstery.
It wasn't hard, considering this is the only place in the city that serves that specific burnt coffee you like.
I wouldn't call it burnt exactly, though it does match my current mood and my general outlook on life today.
Well, you look like you've been caught in a total downpour, even though it's perfectly sunny and dry outside.
I feel like I've been through a storm, Sarah, or maybe just a very efficient car wash without the protection of a car.
That sounds incredibly intense, so I'm guessing the big interview didn't go quite as we had meticulously planned.
Didn't go as planned is a very polite, very optimistic way of saying it was an absolute unmitigated train wreck.
Oh no, come on, it couldn't have been that bad, could it? You're always your own worst critic.
Imagine the worst case scenario you can conceive of, then out a flickering fluorescent light and a very cold cup of water.
Move your bag so I can sit down and hear the whole painful story from the very beginning.
I'm not entirely sure I want to relive it just yet, but I suppose I owe you an explanation for the long face.
You've been preparing for this for 3 solid weeks, so I'm definitely not letting you off the hook that easily.
I know. I had the spreadsheets, the rehearsed answers, the deep breathing exercises, and the lucky tie.
I noticed you're not wearing the lucky tie anymore, which I assume is a fairly ominous sign for the outcome.
It's stuffed in my pocket because I felt like it was slowly choking me about halfway through the second hour.
Wait, 2 hours? I thought they specifically told you it would be a quick 30-minute screening call.
That was the first red flag, as they kept bringing in more people from the hallway to just sit and stare at me.
Well, start at the very beginning, right from the moment you woke up in a panic this morning.
I woke up at 5, drank 3 strong coffees, and checked my notes until the words didn't make any sense.
I told you that over-preparing would just make you more nervous and scatter your focus.
You were right, as usual, but I thought I needed to know every single detail about their quarterly annual reports.
And then you finally got to the office. Tell me about the atmosphere when you walked through the doors.
I arrived 15 minutes early, sat in a glass lobby, and watched everyone walk past me looking incredibly busy and important.
Did anyone actually say hello or offer you another coffee while you were sitting there waiting?
A receptionist nodded in my general direction, but mostly I just sat there listening to the sound of my own heart.
That's always the worst part, the agonizing waiting and the heavy silence before they finally call your name.
When they finally called me, I stood up so fast that I nearly tripped over my own feet in front of everyone.
I can see it now, the classic Tom stumble at the most important professional moment of your life.
It wasn't a full-blown fall, thank goodness, but it certainly wasn't the graceful, confident entrance I'd practiced in the mirror.
So you went into the room, and who exactly was waiting for you there to begin the interrogation?
3 people, all wearing the exact same depressing shade of gray, sitting behind a very long, very shiny table.
That sounds like a scene from a movie about a futuristic prison, not a modern marketing firm.
It felt like a trial, Sarah, and I'm pretty sure the jury had already decided I was guilty of something.
Stop being so dramatic and tell me what they actually asked you during those 2 long hours.
The first question was simple enough, just the usual standard stuff about my background and why I applied there.
You can answer those questions in your sleep, so I'm guessing that part at least went okay?
It was fine, but I could tell immediately that they weren't really listening to a single word I was saying.
But what makes you say that? Were they distracted or looking at their phones under the table?
Not phones, but they kept glancing at the large analog clock on the wall directly behind my head.
That's so incredibly rude, especially when you've taken the time to travel all the way down there in a suit.
I tried to ignore it and keep my energy up, but it's hard when the room feels like a commercial refrigerator.
Did you at least get a chance to show them that impressive portfolio we worked on last weekend?
I brought it out, but the main interviewer just flipped through the pages like he was searching for a typo.
He didn't comment on the creative design or the complex data analysis you did for the mock campaign?
He said, "Interesting choice of colors," and then immediately moved on to a question about a software I've never used.
Wait, that specific software wasn't even mentioned in the original job description, was it?
Not once, but he acted like I should have been an absolute expert in it for at least a decade.
How did you handle that? Did you manage to pivot the conversation or did you just admit the truth?
I tried to be honest but confident, saying I was a quick learner and could pick it up in a week.
That's a perfect B2 level professional response, Tom. You should actually be quite proud of that moment.
Maybe, but he just grunted and wrote something down in a very small, very private notebook.
I hate the small notebook. It always feels like they're writing something secret and negative about your personality.
Exactly, and then the woman on the left asked me where I see myself in 5 long years.
Let me guess, you gave the standard, boring answer about growing with the company and taking on more responsibility?
I tried, but halfway through the sentence, I realized I didn't actually want to be in that building at all.
Tom, you didn't actually say that out loud to the gray suit brigade, did you?
No, but there was this long, awkward pause where I just stared at her while my brain searched for a lie.
A pause isn't the end of the world, though. Smart people often think for a moment before they speak.
This wasn't a thinking pause, Sarah. This was a I've forgotten how to speak English kind of pause.
I'm sure you're exaggerating. You're usually so well-spoken even when you're under a lot of pressure.
Not today, because right after that, I tried to take a sip of water and my hand started shaking visibly.
Oh, Tom, that's just the adrenaline and the nerves kicking in because you cared about the final outcome.
I cared so much that I ended up splashing a tiny bit of water onto my carefully prepared notes.
Did they actually notice, or were they still preoccupied with the clock on the wall?
They noticed, and there was this horrible moment of silence while we all watched the paper turn damp and blue.
Did you at least make a small joke about it to break the unbearable tension in the room?
I tried to say something about being fluid and adaptable to new situations, but nobody laughed.
Okay, that's actually a little bit funny, even if they were too boring and corporate to appreciate it.
It felt like the longest 60 seconds of my life, just sitting there in my suit, feeling like a small child.
But the interview didn't just end there with the water incident, right? There was more to the story.
Oh, there was plenty more, and I promise you it only got stranger and more uncomfortable from there.
I can't imagine it getting much worse than the water spill, but please continue the narrative.
Well, after the water incident, the room seemed to get even quieter, like the air had been sucked out.
Did they ask you about your technical skills, or did they stay on the 5-year plan topic?
They moved on to company culture, which is always a code word for how much of your soul you're willing to sell.
I assume they wanted someone who lives and breathes marketing data 24 hours a day.
Exactly, and they kept asking how I handle high-pressure environments and unrealistic deadlines.
Those aren't job requirements, Tom. Those are warning signs that the office is a nightmare.
I know, but I was so desperate to impress them that I kept nodding like a bobblehead.
I can picture you now nodding and smiling while internally screaming for an exit.
I was internally screaming, all right, but then the third guy finally opened his mouth and everything changed. The first question was simple enough, just the usual standard stuff about my background and why I applied there.
Stranger how? Did they start asking you riddles or testing your physical reflexes?
Almost as the third guy started asking me hypothetical questions that didn't even relate to the actual job.
Like what? If you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be?
Worse, he asked me how I would handle a situation where my boss was clearly wrong but refused to listen.
That's a classic trap question designed to see if you're a rebel or a mindless follower.
I know, but I was so incredibly tired by then that I gave a very honest, very blunt answer.
What exactly did you say? Please tell me you didn't tell them you'd quit on the spot.
I said that if a boss refuses to listen to logic, the company is probably headed for a cliff anyway.
Tom, that is definitely not what they want to hear in a traditional corporate interview.
I know, and as soon as the words left my mouth, I wanted to reach out and pull them back in.
What was their reaction? Did the gray suit brigade finally show some human emotion?
They all just looked at each other, and the air in the room got even colder, if that's even possible.
You've always been a bit too honest for your own good, haven't you? It's your best and worst trait.
It's not just the honesty, it's that I felt this sudden, overwhelming wave of pure frustration.
Frustration at them or frustration at the whole exhausting process of trying to impress them?
Both, I think, because I realized I'd spent 3 weeks trying to become someone they would finally like.
And in that singular moment, the interview version of Tom just gave up and left the building?
He didn't just give up, he walked out the door and left the real me sitting there entirely alone.
So that's why you're so shaken up. It wasn't just a bad interview, it was a total collapse of your plan.
It felt like I was watching myself fail from across the room and I couldn't do anything to stop it.
Did you at least finish the rest of the questions, or did you just stand up and walk out?
I stayed until the bitter end, but the last 20 minutes are a complete blur of synergy and market share.
I've been there, where your mouth is moving and you're saying all the right keywords, but your soul is elsewhere.
Exactly, and when I finally stood up to leave, I completely forgot to shake the woman's hand.
That's a minor detail, Tom. I'm sure people forget that all the time when they're stressed and tired.
Not when you've already told them their company is headed for a cliff, Sarah. It was the final nail.
Look at me, Tom. Is this really just about a botched interview at a company you don't even like?
What do you mean? Of course it is. It was a huge opportunity with a massive starting salary.
But you haven't mentioned the actual work once. Only the salary and the gray suits and the shiny table.
Because that's what a career is supposed to be, isn't it? Moving up the ladder, getting the title.
Is it? Because you've been absolutely miserable for 3 weeks just thinking about this place.
I was nervous, not miserable. There's a very big difference between the two emotional states.
You've been snapping at everyone, you haven't slept, and you've stopped drawing in your sketchbook.
I just didn't have time, Sarah, because I was focusing on what really matters for my future stability.
If the future means turning into one of those people who looks at the clock during a conversation, I'm worried.
You think I'm overreacting, but I really needed this win to prove I'm actually moving forward.
Moving forward towards what, exactly? What is the destination at the end of this corporate road?
I don't know the destination yet. I just thought I was supposed to be on the road with everyone else.
But you're a mountain climber, not a highway driver. You've always been.
Maybe I'm just tired of climbing alone and I wanted an elevator for once.
Elevators only take you to the floors that someone else already built.
That's a very poetic way of saying I'm trying to take the easy way out of my own life.
Not the easy way, just the way that you think will make you feel safe.
And instead of feeling safe, I feel like I've just survived a plane crash.
Maybe because you were never meant to be on that plane in the first place.
I don't know, Sarah. Towards being an adult, I guess, or towards having a life that looks successful on paper.
But you already have a life, and you're one of the most successful people I know in the ways that count.
It doesn't feel like success when you're 30 and sitting in a cafe feeling like a failure over a job you didn't even want.
Wait, stop right there and say that again.
Say what? That I'm 30 and sitting in a cafe with a cold coffee?
No, the very last part, the part about not even wanting the job.
I mean, it's a great job. Anyone would want it. It's a top-tier firm with global reach.
I didn't ask if anyone would want it. I asked if Tom, the man sitting in front of me, wanted it.
I thought I did. I told myself I did every single morning while I was tying that stupid lucky tie.
But when you were in that room, facing those people, what did you actually feel deep down?
Honestly, I felt a strange and terrifying sense of relief when I realized I was blowing it.
Relief. That's a very powerful and very revealing word for a job interview disaster.
It was like a physical weight was being lifted off my shoulders with every bad answer I gave.
So the cliff comment wasn't an accident at all, was it? It was a rescue mission.
I think my subconscious was trying to save me from a 5-year sentence in a gray cubicle.
You were sabotaging yourself because you were too afraid to admit you wanted something completely different.
Is it that obvious? Am I really that transparent to you after all these years?
Only because I've watched you stare at that corporate website with a look of pure dread for a month.
I kept telling myself that everyone feels that way about work and I just needed to finally grow up.
Growing up doesn't mean you have to ignore that voice in your head that's screaming no at the top of its lungs.
But if I don't take a job like that, what am I supposed to do? Just keep drifting and hope for the best?
You aren't drifting, you're just looking for a different harbor than the one everyone else uses.
I'm terrified that if I don't follow the established path, I'll just end up nowhere and alone.
Nowhere is a much better place than a building that makes you forget who you actually are, Tom.
I haven't even touched my sketchbook in a month because I thought it was a childish distraction.
It's not a distraction, it's the thing that makes your eyes light up every time you talk about it.
Those gray suit people, they didn't even look at my drawings. They just looked at my spreadsheets.
Because they don't care about your soul, Tom. They only care about your measurable output.
I think I knew that the moment I walked into the lobby, and I just couldn't pretend otherwise anymore.
So the interview didn't actually go wrong. It actually went perfectly right for your future.
I wouldn't go quite that far. I still feel like I've wasted a lot of people's valuable time today.
You didn't waste anyone's time. You bought yourself some clarity at the price of one awkward afternoon.
It was a very, very awkward afternoon, Sarah. You truly have no idea how much water I spilled.
I think I do, and I think you should be incredibly happy you didn't shake that woman's hand.
Why? Because I might have accidentally stayed there forever if she'd offered me the job on the spot?
Exactly. You might have said yes out of habit, and then we'd never see the real Tom again.
You're right. I probably would have signed the contract just to end the heavy silence in the room.
And then you'd be sitting here 5 years from now, looking at the clock, wondering where your life went.
That is a much scarier thought than failing a job interview at a place I hate.
Exactly. You didn't lose a job today. You escaped a prison cell before the door even locked.
I should probably burn that tie, shouldn't I? Or at least donate it to someone who likes gray suits.
Keep it as a trophy, a reminder of the day you chose yourself over a top-tier firm.
A trophy for the man who almost fell over his own feet and insulted a marketing director.
It's the most honest thing you've done in years, and I'm proud of it for it.
I think I'm starting to feel a little bit proud of it too, in a very weird, shaky kind of way.
Now that we've established you're free man, what are we going to do with the rest of this sunny day?
Well, first, I think I need to order a coffee that actually tastes like something other than regret and burnt beans.
That's a great start, and maybe something with a lot of sugar and cream to help with the shock.
And then, I think I might actually go to the park and open that sketchbook for an hour.
Can I come with you? I promise I won't look over your shoulder or critique your perspective today.
You always critique my perspective, but I suppose I've grown quite used to it by now.
It's not critiquing, it's offering valuable external feedback for your continued personal and artistic growth.
You sound exactly like the interviewers now, though you're wearing much better colors than they were.
I'll definitely take that as a compliment, even though the bar was set incredibly low by the gray suit brigade.
Sarah, thank you for coming here and not letting me sit in my own gloom for the whole evening.
What are friends for if not to pull you out of burnt coffee-induced depressions and corporate nightmares?
I really did feel like I'd failed at the basic, everyday task of being a functioning member of society.
You failed at being a robot, Tom, which is actually a massive and beautiful success in my book.
I suppose I should probably call my parents later and tell them I didn't get the dream job after all.
Just tell them it wasn't the right fit for your skills, which is the absolute unvarnished truth.
You're right. It wasn't the right room, it wasn't the right people, and it definitely wasn't the right life.
See? You're already sounding much more like yourself and much less like a glossy marketing brochure.
I feel like I can actually breathe again, which is a very nice change from the last few suffocating hours.
Good, because I was starting to think I'd have to perform a full emotional intervention right here in the cafe.
No intervention needed, just a very large piece of chocolate cake and some fresh afternoon air.
I can definitely help with the cake part. I saw some amazing chocolate gâteau at the counter when I walked in.
Lead the way, Sarah. I think I'm finally ready to officially move on from the corporate world for today.
Only for today? I was really hoping we could make it a permanent and healthy lifestyle choice.
Let's start with the next 20 minutes and see exactly where the afternoon takes us from here.
That's the most honest and grounded thing you've said all day, and I absolutely love it.
Then it's a deal. No more talk of synergy, market share, or 5-year professional plans for the rest of the day.
Deal. But you have to promise to wear that tie as a headband if you ever feel like being corporate again.
I think I'll just leave it in the pocket for now, just as a small reminder of what I narrowly escaped.
Fair enough. Now let's go get that massive piece of cake before they run out and we have another crisis.
After you, Sarah. I'm right behind you and I'm not looking at the clock once.
Good, because the only thing we're on a deadline for now is enjoying the sunset.
I can handle that kind of pressure. I think I've had enough practice for one day.
You've had more than enough practice, Tom. Now, let's go.